Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and welcome to another video over by my desk. I hope you didn't mind my last video over here. I had my whole lighting and everything set up over here to the best of my ability because I had a job interview today, so I didn't feel like moving it to my regular filming location. So I hope you don't mind. But today we are going to be talking about shifters, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. I love a good werewolf. These are mostly werewolves in these that I'm going to recommend, but there are some other types of shifters in these recommendations, which is very fun. So I am excited to get in and talk about these books. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is a series that I've mentioned many times on my channel, but it's one of my all-time favorites, and that is the Kincaid Pack series by Kiki Clark. This is the first one, The Alpha and His King. These are all MM romances that I really would recommend reading in order. It makes a lot more sense if they're read in order because there is like an overarching plot line that goes through all the books. So I would recommend reading them in order. This is the first one. It is a age gap, like I said, MM romance. The hero, or one of the heroes, is named Rick, and he is the alpha of the Kincaid Pack, and he learns about these two traitors that are in his pack, and he ends up finding a whole group of these traitors' children locked in a shed, and they've been living in this shed, and they are extremely abused, malnourished, and all of that, afraid of pack life. But the oldest of these siblings is 18-year-old Kai, and he comes out swinging. He has, even though he is severely abused and malnourished, he feels responsible for his younger siblings, and he is willing to fight for them. And Kai and Rick end up having a relationship, and this is a fated mate story, so that does play into it, but it's really interesting. Rick is kind of like grumpy hero. He spends a lot of his time working and being the alpha of the pack, and he takes that very seriously because he very much cares for his pack, and so Kai really makes him like think about other things and think about himself for once, which is really sweet to see. Each book in the series, it's an unfinished series. I believe there are 4 books out, but each book in the series are all MM romances that involve shifters. There's also some witches, warlocks involved, so it is all kinds of fun, and it's not just wolves. So this first book they're both wolves, but like for in the second book, for example, one of the heroes is a tiger shifter, and in the third book, a crow and a cougar shifter. So there are all different kinds, and they're all really amazing, and I would totally recommend them. The second book that I'm going to talk about is actually a novella, and that is Mating the Huntress by Talia Hibbert. This one is a hunter and wolf romance, and it is, like I said, it's a novella, so it's very short, but this one follows the heroine, who is in a family of hunters, and she has not ever really been like allowed to go hunt with them. They don't really think she's ready, but she really wants to prove herself, and so when she notices this werewolf come into her coffee shop and hang around and watch her for a couple of days, she decides to attempt to hunt him herself, and she sort of like seduces him and then tries to attack him, and it is wonderful. It's so good. I really enjoyed it, and I really wish Talia Hibbert would write more paranormal because this is the only one I believe that she has, and I loved it, so she should do more. Next one that I'm going to recommend is another series, and that is the Phoenix Pack series by Suzanne Wright. I fully marathoned this series last year and into the beginning of this year. It was like the last half of last year. So this is a very long series. I think there's like 7 or 8 books. But the first book is called Feral Sins. It is a fated mates shifter romance where the heroine, her father has signed her up to be the mate of this alpha who she does not like. He's like super skeevy and she does not want to be with him. So in order to not be with him, she makes this pact to do like a fake dating situation with this other alpha who is the hero, and they pretend to be fated mates in order to allow her to not have to mate with this other guy and for him to get an alliance, which is what he really, really wants. And so they decide to like fake being fated mates, but turns out they weren't faking. And it's really fun. So that's the first book, but there's so many and I loved so many of them. It's a really fun series and it's really easy to marathon. They're just really easy reads, fun, like you go in expecting to just have a good time. Like, I really enjoyed reading this series. I also really apologize if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. She is very upset that I have my door closed. So the next one that I'm going to recommend is one that I read recently that I have not stopped thinking about, and that is the Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. This is a shifter romance. It does not have an audiobook, so I did actually read this on ebook. I was very proud of myself because I couldn't wait, and then right after I finished the ebook, Kate C. Wells' newsletter announced that she is making an audiobook for this, so there will eventually be an audiobook for it. So if you were waiting for an audiobook, there will be one. But this one is a romance where the hero is a tyrant alpha, like the title really says it all in this one. The hero is a tyrant alpha. He is very like harsh, and he expects a lot from his pack. He has a lot of rules, and he really expects you to be fighters, and he took over the pack from his father, and his father was even more awful than he is. So he really thinks that the pack has progressed like a whole lot. But all of the women in the pack really, or like this group of women in the pack really like don't. They're like, you still have a ways to go. And one of those women from that group is the heroine, who is a disabled heroine. She has a leg injury and she has a limp. And so everyone kind of looks down on her because because she's a woman, 2, because she's weak, and 3, because she hasn't shifted yet. And so they think of her as just like this like useless waste of space, basically. But she has a lot of opinions about the pack, and I really like her. And she's very forward thinking and very strong. She really, while the rest of the pack doesn't view her as such, she really looks out for the other unmated women and is like a really good leader of the unmated women, who are kind of this like overlooked group in the pack, who don't have a lot of rights. So I really like the way she stands up for herself and her friends. But she believes, has this moment where she believes that the alpha is her fated mate, and the alpha rejects her in front of everyone, and then realizes, oh shit, she actually is, and then has to spend the rest of the book groveling to get her back. It's great. I love a good grovel. It is one of my favorite things to see in romance. If a hero fucks up, he better be on his knees begging to get me back. Okay, this is going to be a short video because I only have one more, but the last book that I'm going to recommend in this video is Wolf Gone Wild. Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross. This one is obviously a wolf shifter. And this one is part of the Stay a Spell series. It's book 1 in the Stay a Spell series. The hero in this one is a wolf, and the heroine is a witch, and the heroine has a specialty of breaking curses, and so the hero goes to her looking for her to try and break this curse that he believes is on him. But the witches don't work with werewolves, and so they really have to deal with that. It's like a very like fated enemies type thing, as witches are supposed to hate werewolves. So that's a very interesting like political element that's added into this. But the hero has this curse that he is on him where he can not shift, and he can hear his wolf as like a separate mind inside of his head, and he's like constantly arguing with it. And so in the audiobook, there's like 3 different perspectives. It's so interesting. I can only speak to the audiobook because I listened to that, but I'm sure if you read it, it would be like 3 different perspectives also. But you have the hero whose name is Mateo, and then you have the heroine whose name is Evie, and then you have the hero's wolf whose name is Alpha. And it's so interesting to see the way that like Alpha and Mateo have such different personalities but are one being. It's so interesting. And so while he doesn't shift a whole bunch in this book, so the wolf isn't actually present, it is the 2 of them having to work out how to help Mateo and his issue with his like internal battle with Alpha, and figuring out how to get him to shift again. So it's super interesting, and I really love it. And I love the whole political system of paranormal political system that Juliet Cross creates in this book, because it talks about like the different structures of the different like the vampires versus the wolves versus the witches versus the Grimms, I think is the other thing that they call. And it's so interesting how they create it. It takes place in New Orleans, which I just love. It was such a fun setting. And I had all sorts of fun with it. And Evie has a couple of sisters. I think she has 3 sisters, maybe 4 sisters. And they have other books. So book 2 doesn't deal with shifters because the book 2 is a vampire and a witch, but book 3 also has a wolf in it, and that is a enemies to friends to lovers workplace romance that also has a wolf in it. So that one is, I would recommend just as much, but I do prefer Wolf Gone Wild to that one, which is why I recommend this one in this video. But I would, if you like paranormal, I would read this whole series. It's so fun, and I absolutely cannot wait to read the next book that comes out, which comes out super soon, which is called Always Practice Safe Hex, which is a witch and I believe a Grimm. So I'm super excited about that. But like I said, this is going to be a short video, so that is going to be it for this video. Those were the 5 books that I wanted to recommend. So please like this video if you liked it. I hope that you will subscribe and stick around so that you can see more videos from me. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!